This is the Ready Set Podcast, and here's your host, me, Joe Persinger.
Hey, how's your week, you fucks? Happy motherfucking hurricane weekend. Alright, Klaus, can you cut the music? Thank you, sir. Quick reminder for everyone to hit the like button on our Ready Set Facebook page or subscribe to the podcast on Mixcloud Speaker or Apple Podcast or YouTube. Please rate us on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review. If you like what you hear, please share the podcast with your friends or on social media. Okay, I've got a great show for us this week. A great show. This show is jam-packed. How jammed up is it, you ask? This thing is so jammed, it's like Javi Baez on a 3-2 strike, 3 curveball pitch. This show is so jammed, Nashville Jams has to make me pay them for the advertisement. Okay, that was horrible. We'll have to try it again next week. This is your one-stop shop current events and politics podcast. If society's a joke, then we're just here for the first set. Are you ready? Set podcast! All right, before we get to the asteroid update, I want to urge everyone to check out the Country Fried Southern Crimes podcast. It's a great true crimes podcast with some great comedy, so please check it out. Okay, let's talk space rocks. So our asteroid update, our weekly asteroid update, we'll start here with on July 8th at 1:15 Standard Time, 2019 MT2 is traveling at a speed of 25,000 miles per hour and 102 feet in diameter. This is a pretty average size one that we've seen. And, of course, it's roughly 3 million miles from the center of the Earth. That's a little bit out there. Just a bit outside. Sorry, I'm too lazy to bring up that soundbite. The next one we have is passing through on July 10th at 2:06 in the morning, Standard Time, named 2019 NM4. That's Nancy Marie 4. It's 325 feet at 18,000 miles per hour. You notice the soundbite that can play there. That could be a hint. It's at 2.1 million miles from the Earth's center, or the Earth's core, however the fuck they write these fucking things. The next one, passing through later this month on July 26th at 3:04 p.m. Standard Time. Its name, 2010 PK9. That's Peter King 9. Peter King Niner. And it is 853 feet.
That's a huge bitch!
And this space rock is traveling at a whopping 37,000 miles per hour.
Give them the cheese! Stinky cheddar!
At a distance of 2 million miles an hour from the Earth's center. You're still way out of the park, Greg. Way out of the park. All right, what's the next one we got here? So, July 12th at 1:21 Standard Time, that was yesterday, traveling at 35,000 miles an hour.
Give them the cheese! Stinky cheddar!
Yeah, I definitely say that that space rock's definitely traveling with some high-speed cheddar. I don't know if I said, but the name is 2019 NW5, that Northwestern Fiber, at a distance of 4.3 million miles from the Earth's center. So I don't think you have to worry too much about that one hitting us. Then later that morning, or yesterday morning, it's July 12th, 6:42 a.m. Standard Time, 2019 KD3 at a diameter of 459 feet. You know, normally that would be, that's a huge bitch, but it's not, because based on what we have here, traveling at 18,000 miles an hour, there's definitely no cheddar there. And, of course, it's 3.7 million miles from the Earth's center. Still way off, Greg. Still way off. Okay, so last week we kind of missed this, but really not much to miss because there wasn't anything to miss, if that makes any sense. But our OJ update is back, and this is really more of an OJ update-ish. Nothing special to report on the Juice other than him being in New Orleans. The Juice is loose! And some Europeans apparently hacked his computer, and he had something to say about that on Twitter. But again, it's really a non-issue, so I'm not even going to bother to play the soundbite. All right, we're plowing ahead. All right, so I meant to put this on the podcast last week, or should I say a few days ago, so I guess it's still somewhat relevant. Tina Jag, whose real name is Jillian Graham, has pulled out of a Michigan music festival after she learned that white people would be charged twice the amount to attend than people of color, or POC if you want to be cool. Let's see. So organizers cite equality and equity in their ticketing and state their structure was built to ensure that the most marginalized communities, people of color, or POC if you're cool, are provided with an equitable chance at enjoying events in their own community, Black Detroit. Affording joy and pleasure. This is all quoted from the organizers who put this event together. Affording joy and pleasure is unfortunately still a privilege in our society for POC. What does that stand for? People of color. That is correct. And we believe everyone should have access to receiving such, receiving such, organizers wrote. Hey dickheads, or should I say racist dickheads, shouldn't the goal of equality be to include everyone? And you and I know you're full of fucking shit. If this is really about equality, then why does it feel like spite towards anyone perceived as a non-POC? This policy is bred from spite, which means it's from a place of hate, and that's wrong and fucking racist. You know, this reminds me of these YouTube influencer fucks. They preach that they're all about wellness, positive leadership, when in reality, it's none of that. It's fucking egos. Go fuck yourself, influencers. More like influenzas. Is that Spanish YouTube for influencer? I digress. You YouTube fucks are full of shit, and don't pretend what you're doing is about X when it's really about Z, you greedy fuck. And for these organizers, if this is really about giving people of color an economic opportunity to attend an event, make all the tickets $10 and quit attempting to place a racist tax on white people. It's obvious what you're doing, and attempting to hide behind a charitable act is disgraceful. But fine, keep doing what you're doing, and then openly question how 45 gets elected next year. I'll be glad to point to this while laughing at you when this happens all over again.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President for the inaugural address.
All right, well, here's a new one. We got a Georgia man met girl 13 online and tossed her from a car window in a high-speed chase. Now, in the article, it kind of goes on to say that on its surface, it looks like he met a girl online, like Catch a Predator style, got caught and tossed her out the window. But if you read the article, it's not that simple. They did meet online. That is true. Definitely not fake news. They just had been dating for a while. So on the surface, it sounds a lot worse than, it's bad. But what's pretty hilarious is this 30-year-old Georgia man is facing multiple charges for allegedly throwing a 13-year-old girl he met online from his car during a high-speed chase in South Carolina. So there's two things going on here. Either it's a very, outside of, me being a dick right now, it's, one of the upsides to dating a girl that's 13, she's probably barely 100 pounds. If you're a strong guy, obviously it's effortless to throw her out of the window. The other side of this is a fat dude or a really strong ox guy who can't get a girl his age, and he just winged a fat chick out the window. I'm going to go with the former. Let's move on to we got a few Florida people for you. All right, so this one's a little bit more local here to the county that I reside in. On July 11, 2019, a man driving on Florida's Turnpike shot at a van on Tuesday after it wouldn't let him change lanes, according to officials. The driver, 27, was driving north in Osceola County near, it's basically Osceola Parkway and, I forgot what the tollway is over there, but that's where he was at. This incident took place in the same county I reside in. God knows I deal with these trashy people. Who am I kidding? It's Kissimmee. We all know it's trashy Puerto Ricans. No surprise there. But when you're so angry that you think pulling a gun on someone is a better option than calling the police, well, not only are you going to jail, but that vigilante attitude is going to be crushed by whatever judge you're standing in front of. I'd say deport the bastard, but I guess he's technically an American citizen. But my guess is he doesn't think of himself that way, if he even thinks at all. Send his ass to China. They need more diversity over there in that homogenous, corrupt, oppressive society. I'd like to see what would happen if that asshole attempted this very same stunt in China. To the gulag! I mean, the re-education camp you go. Vamos, cabron. All right, here's a classic of Florida man's story. A Florida man threatens people with sword over game console power outage. A Florida man is arrested and charged with multiple counts of assault for threatening his family with a sword because the power to his game console had been turned off. This is like that one Facebook video you see where the kid's flipping out even though everyone knows it's staged. But this is real life. The Brevard County Sheriff's Office says that 24-year-old Siler Elroy Ballard, what kind of fucking name is that? Does it get any more centennial? Siler, please, has been charged with 2 counts of aggravated, Jesus fucking Christ, can I even talk? Aggravated assault after pulling a large sword on his family members and handyman. The handyman had turned off the power to the barn where Ballard was playing on his game console, and this caused some damage to the game console. I can understand this. Get a surge protector, you crazy fuck. Upset with this because, he can't take responsibility for himself because he's also playing video games in a barn for some reason. Ballard grabbed his sword and began to yell threats. Ballard's father says that his son said, "I am going to kill you," while brandishing this dangerous weapon. So, this is what I would have done. I would have taken a glove. Let me start over. If I was Ballard, which I never will be, instead of freaking out and grabbing a sword, you have to do this the right way. You're going to have to grab a glove, walk out to the handyman, and slap him with it, and challenge him to a duel.
I challenge you to a duel.
And if you're lucky like Homer Simpson was, you probably won't have to deal with anyone having any pushback on you unless you end up, slapping some guy that looks like the Colonel from KFC. Which KFC did blow up this weekend. That's a whole nother story. I'm not getting into that one, but there is a Popeyes story that I got coming up in just a little bit. Anyway, challenging to a duel. It's a lot better than brandishing a sword. I mean, you're not going to jail for attempted murder now. Maybe assault, maybe disorderly conduct. But hey, challenging to a duel. I'm sure someone will find that a lot more acceptable than, "I'm going to kill you with my fucking sword!" So here's a new one. A Florida mom has been charged with a felony after her daughter licks a tongue depressor and puts it back. And I guess she had put it on like Snapchat or one of her social media accounts. And that, got her arrested. So I don't know about you, but this trend of people licking things and putting them back has not only jumped the shark, but it stabbed the squid in the face and then sodomized it with a beluga whale dick. I mean, a few weeks ago, it was the Lufton licker, but she's going to be charged as a juvenile. I'd throw the book at her, literally, and then tell her to lick it. And then you got this guy scooping out ice cream with his fingers, fucking copycat bitch. They should force that asshole to bathe in ice cream and then eat nothing but ice cream. That'll teach that fat fuck. But now, we have a Florida woman, I wish I was kidding here, videoing her kid licking a tongue depressor and putting it back. Jesus fucking Christ, what is wrong with you people? Do you think you're funny? And don't make me get on my soapbox again and have to lecture you dumb trash like Cardi B or you Florida rednecks about being and acting like a responsible adult in front of your kids. Okay, alright, I'll step off.
Step off, George.
So they arrested this bitch and she clearly has buyer's remorse, or is that licker's remorse? That kind of sounds like a cheap porn that was written in the heyday of the Ron Jeremy era. Now, she went on to say, the video doesn't show that the items were thrown away or anything else that happened. I posted this on my personal Snapchat with my 20-something friends. There's a problem. Where someone allowed another person to video it. I didn't post it on Facebook or YouTube as a challenge or whatever. Okay, so there's clearly a disconnect with this lady. Maybe if Obama was still in office, he'd rip the child away from the mother and imprison it in an off-site border facility. But we all know the media would just turn around and blame that on Trump. Quit licking stuff that's not yours, you idiots, and leave my ice cream alone and go back to eating those Tide Pods, you centennial fucks. So Jermaine Dupree had something interesting to say about the landscape of female rap along the likes of Cardi B. Who else was it in there? What's that crazy lady's name? Nikki Minaj. I guess Miley Cyrus kind of fell into that, but then got out of that, and I'm going to get to that in just 1 second. So he kind of the quote started with him talking about how Debrat was basically a rapper, and she was rapping about stuff, not stripper culture, if you will. And he basically went on to say that she was putting up numbers that were very similar to what a male rapper would put up, and her content was pretty fucking good. And then in this interview, they asked him about, what does he think about, the likes of Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, and they didn't mention Miley Cyrus, but she definitely falls into this category, and I'm sure some people would fight me on that, but she's the one that claimed she was a hip-hop artist 6 years ago. Klaus, let's play that clip.
Other female rappers. Do you have a favorite right now in the rap game?
Cardi B, Nikki,
Females?
Megan Thee Stallion. Stand out to you?
I can't really say.
Not a Cardi B fan?
No, but the reason why I can't say is because I feel like they all rapping about the same thing, and I don't think they're showing us who's the best rapper. I think they're trying to show, for me, it's like strippers rapping, and I don't. As far as rap goes, I'm not getting who is the best rapper. I'm getting like, okay, you got a story about you dancing in the club. You got a story about you dancing in the club. You got a story about you dancing in the club. Okay, all right. Who's getting ready to? Who's going to be the rapper?
Show you something different.
Yeah.
Well, what is the thing that you want to see if you're not like?
Just more. I mean, I feel like at some point somebody's going to have to break out of that mold and just show us, talk about other things like rap. Just rap about other things besides that.
Thank you, Jermaine Dupree. I'm not down with the hip-hop game, but if I knew that game like the politics game, this is an angle I would totally agree with. These ladies are talentless hacks. He says it perfectly. It's stripper rap. Not to rehash, but he's right. They rap about the same shit, hang out in strip clubs, and they really do come off as glamorous strippers who dress like high-class hoes. So the glittery toilet bowl shit show known as Cardi B responded, well, I play the video for you, but I can't understand a word she's saying. It's ghetto trash nonsense anyway. Oh, no, you don't, Klaus. Don't even try to cue Ken into the microphone. Fuck that glorified stripper bitch. She's trash. Hey, Cardi, you want to be bold? Do a show without makeup and try to keep your hoe clothes on. And try to write some new material. And let's be honest here. Miley Cyrus was on this path. And based on her, what the woke left referred to as a racist comments about hip-hop, she was sliding down the stripper pole, literally in some cases, and only to get pulled back, I assume by her people. Maybe they knew she couldn't compete, and that's why she claimed it's a misogynistic business, which it is, but perhaps that was a crutch. My guess is she couldn't hack it, which is a perfect segment into our next story here. And this is probably one of my favorite things to do here on the podcast, rip on Miley Cyrus. So Miley Cyrus is heartbroken after her pet pig dies, and she shared an emotional Instagram post. Well, at least she doesn't have to worry about purchasing bacon for a year. Lucky bitch. Fucking shit's expensive. Or should I say lucky pig? I mean, I'm sure there's some skinny soy boy out there who would die to be inside Miley Cyrus's innards. See what I did there?
And that's Ready Set Podcast on Twitter in care of Joe Persinger at 420 Chicago Avenue.
Wow! I didn't realize Ken was being propped up by PETA. Woo! So multiple outlets are also reporting that the Wrecking Ball singer, or is it the mother-daughter singer? Whatever the shitty single singer Megalo Miley is peddling these days, says she refuses to have kids until climate change is solved and fish are in the water. Well, the good news is she's going to be barren for a long, long time, not to mention that climate change is a hoax. The bad news? Miley Cyrus is still relevant for some reason. And then this is what I find interesting. So we find this story where it claims she's, not going to do this whole kid thing because of climate change, whatever the fuck that means. And then I find this article from Radar Online that it says it has exclusively learned Miley Cyrus and Liam Hemsworth are ready to play house once the singer's burnt-down Malibu mansion rises from the ashes. Quote, Miley and Liam are rebuilding on that site because they want to start a family and raise their kids there, a source revealed. We all know what that means. It's made up. So, like I said, didn't I just read an article in this podcast about the opposite narrative? Considering the first story we did was sourced from Miley Cyrus herself, we're going to refer to this as clickbait fake news, and we are officially banning Radar Online as a source from the podcast. Radar Online, you are fake news. All right, we got a brand new segment this week, everyone. We're going to play something called Sports Jeopardy. Klaus? Just let it breathe for a second. We're going to let this breathe. Okay, I'm going to play this on a loop here and turn it down. Actually, I can't do that. So, you know what? Cut it, Klaus. I said cut it! So, Alex, I'm going to take What's this? I'm going to go here. I'm going to blow the biggest opportunity of my life because I can't keep it in my pants for 2,000. All right. I'm going to play the host really quick. The Saints said that they were comfortable signing this undrafted rookie, but a judge in Wyoming wasn't comfortable with the terms of a plea agreement, and his pending sexual battery charge has now landed this urban moron in prison for 6 months. That's a tough one. You have 10 seconds. Who is rookie defensive end Carl Granderson? That's right, folks. Make good decisions, kids, and don't end up like this idiot. Let me check my inner oracle here. I see a fast food career or multiple felonies in his future. And just to get you caught up, the Saints said they were comfortable signing this guy, Carl Granderson, despite a pending trial for sexual assault. But a judge in Wyoming wasn't comfortable with the terms of the plea agreement. Granderson struck with prosecutors. What happened with Jeffrey Epstein and this guy? You know, geez, maybe they should have put this guy in the Epstein case. Anyway, I'm tangenting here. He struck a deal with Granderson to avoid trial. Granderson agreed to plead no contest to 1 count of sexual battery, and that wasn't good enough for the judge, and he hauled his ass off to jail. So I think the Saints are going to have a free roster spot available to anyone that is interested. So this week in politics, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez referring to Nancy Pelosi as a racist. She accused House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of the explicit singling out of newly elected women of color, referring to a group of freshman Democrats who have disagreed with Pelosi. AOC told the Washington Post that Pelosi's criticism of her and her quartet and other members of this unofficial group is basically outright racism. And here's my reaction to AOC and Pelosi trading verbal spars through the media.
Catfight? Catfight.
Catfight. Catfight. So actually I got to take a step back here from politics. I missed a story here. So what do we got? Residents in South Florida are complaining about a foul smell from a Florida Popeyes restaurant in Stuart, Florida. So I've got an idea. Let's kick the business out. If this was a mom-and-pop chicken shack, I'd be a little bit more lenient. But this is a huge company. Okay, maybe it's a franchise. Even more to the point, the owner of this franchise and the overall business has committed to distributing chicken amongst the community. Chicken smells amongst the community, and grease probably, which they should be commended for. But with that power comes great responsibility, a duty to serve the greater good of your employees, which is another topic. But most importantly, the persons who reside near your business, the community. You're responsible for this community. If you can't keep your chicken shack clean and mitigate the smell of grease and fried chicken, you need to get the fuck out. Sure, the business generates tax revenue for the city, but no one has to live in the restaurant. Those people are there from whatever, 8 hours a day in multiple shifts. And I don't even feel sorry for the manager because he chose to work there or for that company. But of course, you have one of these commissioners, probably a Democrat, trying to have it both ways. Fuck you, commish! Force the chicken shack to provide free food to its neighbors. Well, that's probably a bad idea. Well, force them to another part of town. Who wants to sit on their patio and smell fried chicken and grease all afternoon? Not a bunch of white people!
And that's Ready Set Podcast on Twitter in care of Joe Persinger at 420 Chicago Avenue.
Okay, we're going to jump back to politics here. So, if I believe this is from some leftist rag, I'm not even going to give them credit. I mean, they get credit for writing it, but I'm not going to give them the advertisement. So, this leftist rag asks, could a Democrat really unseat Mitch McConnell? Amy McGrath will try to do what Beto O'Rourke couldn't, remove a high-profile Republican from a deep red state. And I'm going to answer that question for you. No. Trump won that state by a 2-1 margin, and that's Kentucky, if you're not sure who Mitch McConnell is representing. And Amy McGrath flip-flops like a fish out of water. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. Plowing ahead. And speaking of deranged Democrats, California lawmakers have passed a bill requiring Trump and presidential hopefuls to release their tax returns in order to appear on the California ballot. So, do they really think this is going to make a difference? Isn't this borderline extortion? I mean, anyway, if I'm Trump, and this bill goes into law, I'm telling California not only to go fuck themselves, but I'd send one of my aides who resides in this revisionist socialist sideshow known as California, have them bring me back the ballot so I can put a video on the gram of me wiping my ass with it. But Joe, Trump needs California. Trump needs California like Hillary needs poor people on her doorstep looking to have an honest conversation about life. Still don't believe me? Let's look at the 2016 election results in this destructive state of our union, and that's California. So what do we got here? 100% reporting with the polls closing at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Hillary Clinton won the state with 61.6% of the vote. That turned into 7.3624, so 7,362,492 votes casted for her. Donald Trump came in at 32.8% of the vote, just about a third, at 3.9 million. So that's 3,916,209. And I'll tweet out this this picture I have that I pulled off of Politico. And again, it's just, if you look up and down the coast of California, blue, 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 and all the red is towards the northern part of the state, towards the eastern. You know, almost it's. I'll just check it out if you want to see us on Twitter. Ready, Set, Podcast, PODCST. So the point here is that Clinton beat Trump in this state by an almost 2-to-1 margin. We're kind of flip-flopping the conversation we had just before. Mitch McConnell won Kentucky on a similar margin of 2-to-1, just like Clinton had beat Trump in California on this same 2-to-1 margin. 2-to-1! And it's not like these electoral votes are proportional. It's all or nothing, bitch! So President Trump, if you're listening and this extortion bill gets passed by that soy boy governor, Gavin, I swear I'm not gay, Newsom, wipe your ass with the bill. Because honestly, even if Trump is on the ballot, there's no way he's going to win this state. So this is just California being California, lawmakers being lawmakers. Quit fucking pandering. Now, this is something I do find kind of interesting. If they were to get, and this is not a pro-electoral college sentiment at all, but if they were to go proportionalize all these, maybe that's what their plan is here. This actually makes sense. So they're going to pass this bill. If the governor signs it into law, this is almost like a preemptive strike, because if they do, they're not going to, but if the electoral college does get changed into this popular vote, everything I believe if they want it to become proportional to, I'm pretty sure I'm right here. Either way, it's not going to happen. California is a blue leftist European socialist state. They're going to vote Democrat no matter what. I think there's almost 5 million Mexicans living there, and plus whoever else is going to vote illegally in this next election. Just forget California, just like Democrats almost forget about Texas. Okay, let's get to the staff report.
In my hand, I hold the staff report.
So South Korea has purchased a fleet of F-35 jets, which are being deployed to the Republic of Korea, and North Korea has now vowed to respond to this deployment by, they say, creating a special weapons to destroy these aircrafts. North Korea, the Hermit Kingdom, the Chinese puppets of the Korean Peninsula, a country that has built itself up on the free slave labor its citizens are required to participate in. But hey, the housing is free, even though electricity is sparse and the heat in the winter is non-existent. But all you fucking socialist Democrats choose to ignore these deficiencies that take place in these poor socialist countries. Where was I? And what am I talking about? Oh, yeah. In all fairness, capitalism, communism, socialism all have their drawbacks. But trading freedom for free stuff is ignorant. $5, the majority of these socialist fucks who are buying into this communism crap were too young or stoned to realize what 9/11 is. But I digress. So South Korea has purchased a bevy of F-35 jets from the United States, and that has the Hermit Kingdom up in arms. Why? Well, I'm not defending these northern socialist fucks. But if you and your neighbor are building up a car collection for an eventual street race that may or may not happen, and you've been hamstrung by financial deficiencies, which only allows you to invest in restoring these muscle cars that you've had since the early 60s, and then all of a sudden your rival is sporting a brand new Ferrari, you'd be a little nervous too. Or as my therapist likes to say, or my old therapist used to say, this is a problem. Now, I don't suggest, like North Korea, you develop an airborne car bomb, or at least threaten to make one, But this is the reality of the bellicose rhetoric and nature of the Hermit Kingdom. It's their way of looking like a tough guy. By flapping their gums via the KCNA, their state media, they claim to their citizens that this bellicose rhetoric is what keeps the world superpowers on their knees. I was going to make a joke there, but I'm going to not do that. Bending to the will of corrupt political gangsters. I know you folks know what I'm talking about. You probably got a friend in your group whose attitude and thought process operates on a similar wavelength. North Korea is that 115-pound soy boy who wishes his muscles were as big as his mouth. He's that guy that feels the need to overcompensate for his physical deficiencies by getting in the face of anyone who gives him the wrong look. Then when the crazy fuck starts with another group of people, he takes her gorilla arm, pushes it against his chest, and demands that you hold him back. Hey, dickheads! You're like Democrats on steroids who want everything both ways. Well, I got news for you, Chinese puppets. You're a buffer zone. That's it. Your mere existence on the global stage is just that. China will allow you to operate like a broke-back mafia, oppressing your citizens as long as you do as they say and not as they do. Because the last thing the Chinese fucks want is an American ally with an American airbase on their border. So do you. For hour.
And that's Ready Set Podcast on Twitter in care of Joe Persinger at 420 Chicago Avenue.
So I found something this week that just burns me alive. And it's a book about Paul Ryan, and that I guess he interviewed for this book as well. So Paul Ryan wanted to escape from Trump and to scold him all the time. This new book claims that the House former Speaker, Paul Ryan, continued to dislike President Trump after calling for his ouster before the 2016 election and saw retirement as a route to escape his leadership. All this article tells me is two things. I don't need to read this book, and Paul Ryan is the third head of five on this Never Trump Hydra monster that has been undercutting President Trump from the get-go. Never Trumpers. Do you know what this faction is? I mean, other than the fact that these are establishment politicians who are aligned with establishment Democrats. Basically, it's the people who work in the D.C. bubble. But this faction of establishment politicians is so far up the D.C. bubble's ass that they no longer have the pulse on their own electorate, Republican or Democrat. They laughed at everything Trump ran on. They publicly ridiculed him when they thought he had no shot. Then they lined up to unzip his pants, only to have him high and dry when the Access Hollywood to leave him high and dry when the Access Hollywood tape was released. And what could only be bittersweet to fucktards like Paul Ryan and his former running mate Mitt Romney. Don't get me started on that old fart George Will. Can you imagine the horror to the likes of these three fucks? And various other never Trumpers that are out there, you know who you are, when Trump was elected president of the United States. So one tidbit that came out of this article was that Paul Ryan was negotiating in the summer of September 2018 the spending bill that did not include any money for the border wall. Does anyone remember that? Because I do. The first thing I thought of is, where's the border wall funding? And I thought it was the Democrats. What a slimy piece of shit. Hey, pretty boy Paul, let me look into those soulless blue eyes of yours and give you a fucking message from the working class guys. You elitist politicians do not represent your ex-party anymore. The evidence was there in 2016 and you chose to ignore it. Instead of understanding the tide is turning against establishment fucks like yourself, you chose to ignore the reality that was right in front of your face. And instead of doing your job and assisting the president in getting his agenda through the House, you botched the repeal of Obamacare, created multiple fractions from within the party due to his open lack of support for the president. And what I find so damning about Paul Ryan is his blatant sabotage of that spending bill that lacked border funding. This act of sabotage wasn't about party unity. It wasn't about compromise. It was all about Paul Ryan and never Trumper egos being smashed to bits because a novice politician, a New York businessman, walks into a Republican primary and wipes the floor with these establishment fucks like Paul fucking Ryan. That's why he's retired. That's why he's sitting in Wisconsin with his thumb up his ass, biding his time. But if you ask me, the former soulless, blue-eyed Speaker of the House played the ultimate bitch card. He took his ball and went home crying to his mommy. Go fuck yourself, Paul Ryan. And I got my eyes on you, Romney, or Mr. Burns.
Excellent.
Republican and Democrats are kind of split up into a few different kind of groups. On the Republican side, you have corporate Republicans, and 15, 20 years ago, that's the, like we'll use that movie with Eddie Griffin. What was it? Where I can't remember what it was. But in it, you had this rich white guy who was the man. That's a corporate Republican. Now, the party, since Donald Trump has taken over, has kind of shifted more into a populist Republican Party, meaning it's a working man's party now. So all these corporate Democrats, like the Koch brothers, any Mitt Romney, these rich boy fucks who are used to, having this corporate control of the party, they no longer have a home anymore. Kind of like how I did 4 or 5 years ago. And it's the same on the Democrat side, except now it's even more fractured because you have moderate Democrats, you have corporate Democrats who kind of tend to be one and the same, but there are some differences. And now you have this progressive wing of the party taking over, and it's just all a big giant shit show. And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You have the Koch brothers today working with George Soros. All right, and that's the staff report.
We're trying to get a feel for how people spend their day.
The staff reports.
All right, that's going to do it for us this week. Wow, 2 podcasts in 1 week. Don't get used to that pace, folks. Okay, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at Ready Set Podcast. That's Ready Set PODCST, or email the podcast at ReadySetPodcast. That's exactly how it sounds at gmail.com. This is your one-stop shop current events and politics podcast. If society's a joke, then we're just here for the first set. Thanks for listening. Please share the podcast if you'd like to support us, and we'll see you next week, you fucks.
Thanks for listening to the Ready Set Podcast. Check us out next week, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter and look for us on our YouTube channel, Ready Set Podcast.